All right, welcome back everybody. My name is Dustin, and in the last video we added the rect fill tool, and this is great because this will actually help us make maps faster. We still have a long way to go before we can actually use these maps in our scene. However, we're going to start working on that now. If you notice up here, we don't have our file bar or file menu, and today we're going to actually do the menu display and just get a file menu bar on the screen. And I also want to start looking into file dialogs and how we're going to handle that. Okay, so let's get started with that now. So the first thing I want to do is create a new display. So let's go to our editor, source, displays, and we'll create a new one. New file, and that's just going to be the MenuDisplay.h. Yep, we're going to want to add it. And we're going to do our pragma once. And just like all other displays, this is going to inherit from iDisplay. So include iDisplay.h. Then we're going to have our namespace. So namespace Scion editor. Cool. Class, menu, display, and public iDisplay. Cool. So let's add a private section. We're not going to have any variables right now, but we're going to be adding stuff later that we're going to need. And we'll have our public section. KD. So menu display can just be default for now for our constructor. If we have to change it later, we will. And we'll just do a default for the destructor as well, make that virtual. Cool. And the only thing I care about for this video at least is the draw function. So let's just do that now. It's virtual void draw, and we're going to override this. Cool. So let's quickly go make our menu display.cpp. So add new file. Menu display.cpp. Yep, we want to add it to our CMake, and we're going to include menu display.h. That's in our namespace, Scion editor. Cool. Let's go back to here, and let's create this draw function. It should make for us. Awesome. So for this video, all I want to do is create the menu bar and a few menu items. We don't want to have them really doing anything. While we might do some tests just to open up some file dialogs later on. However, for this video, it's going to be pretty straightforward. So let's just create that now. So we'll go if. So first thing we need is IamGUI. So let's include that. IamGUI. And we might as well include a couple other things. Let's include our logger. Include logger.h. Cool. For the menu bar, all we really want to do is go IamGUI begin main menu bar. And right away, we're just going to say IamGUI end main menu bar. And let's add a few things inside. So we're going to have our file menu. So if IamGUI begin menu. This is just going to be file. IamGUI end menu. Let's copy this a few times. So let's have one for settings or edit. Edit would be good. Edit. Let's put another one in. We'll call this tools. Put another one in, and we'll call this settings, and maybe one more for help. Cool. Help or options or something like that. So we have our menus. Now let's add some menu items. So up here in file, we'll just say if IamGUI menu item. It's going to be new. If you see here, we can take a label, and the label is going to be new. We can have a shortcut, like what is the shortcut? So let's say we have some shortcut keys. That could be Control plus N. And then we can have some other, is it selected, is it enabled? But those don't matter right now, so that's good for this one. And we can just copy this, Let's make another one. And this one will be open. Control O. These aren't going to do anything right now. We'll do some tests later. Another one for save. Control S. Eventually we will have the shortcuts working, but not right now. That's not as important right now. And let's just have another one for exit. And that won't have a shortcut. Cool. So we got a lot of stuff here that we can do. And that's pretty good for now. Now, the whole point of this is just to get this menu bar on the screen. So let's go into our application and actually add this to our displays. So let's do that now. And we'll go to application.cpp right here. And right where our displays are, we can just add that in. We'll just add it right at the top. MenuDisplay.h. Then we can go, I think it's called Create Displays. Yep. So we'll go to Create Displays. And let's add this in. So the first thing I want to, so we have our display holder, then we have our scene display. So let's just copy our scene display. And right up here, we'll create our menu display first. So scene display is going to be menu display. Failed to create menu display, not menu display. Cool. And let's go down here, copy this down or duplicate. So P menu display, and that should work for us. That's it. So then now we should have our menu. So let's right here. Let's actually just go Scion log new pressed. Cool. And we'll just copy this down a couple times. Open, save, and should eventually exit. And let's run it. If we have errors, we'll fix the errors, but we should be displaying the menu display now up at the top. Awesome, look at that. See, this is our new menu display up at the top, or our main menu bar. So we have our file, and if we watch our logs here, and I hit new pressed, open pressed, awesome. Save pressed, and should eventually exit. These don't have anything, so it won't really show anything, just a little box. And that's fine. That's the whole point, was to get this menu bar in today. Awesome, so now that we have that working, it's time to start looking into file dialogs. There are many ways to do file dialogs and some great libraries out there that can really help us with this task. We need to make sure that it's cross-platform. We could write our own, but there are better solutions out there. For my bin converter project, I used the NFD-Extended library. This worked wonderfully and is a great library. The only issue I have is that we cannot change the title of the dialog without making any changes to the library. So I've chosen to use Tinyfiledialogs, which we can also get right from VC package. I've already done this for mine. However, we'll go over this again to show you what you need to do. Also, we'll actually be adding this to the build instructions at the end so we can use that as well. So let's actually get Tinyfiledialogs right now. For Tinyfiledialogs, all you need to do, let's make this bigger. Can this get larger? Yeah. So all you need to do is go VC package install Tinyfiledialogs. Now this should already be set up for me, and if you made it this far in the video, you should probably already have VC package installed and all your triplets set up and everything like that. So let's do it. And so as you can see, it's already installed on mine. That's all you need to do. So it'll install it for x64 Windows, and if you're on Linux, it'll install it for Linux. Okay. And then we need to link it like this. Okay. Something like this in our CMake file. So let's get into that now. So we'll just go here. We can close this down a little bit. And let's go to our main CMake list. And right where in our package area here, we can add another one. We want to go find package. And that's Tinyfiledialogs. Config required. Awesome. So now that we have Tinyfiledialogs, we're going to want to make another static library. So we have these libraries. We're going to want to make another one called Scion File System. This library will contain our file dialog wrappers and any serializers that we create and anything else that has to do with files or file systems that we may want to add to the engine. So right now we will actually create a new folder. So up here, go add new folder, and this will be Scion File System. Cool. And we're going to want to add a couple other folders to this as well. So in here, we're going to want to add new folder, and this is going to be our include folder. And in our include folder, we're going to want to have dialogs. So add new folder. This will be dialogs. Now we want this just in case we want to add other file dialogs or other ways to do file dialogs. So we might as well have a folder to separate it. And we're going to have another one, and it's going to be a new folder, and this is going to be serializers. Serializers. I think I spelled that right. All right. Now serializers is going to be how are we serializing data to files, and we're going to get into that later on. We're definitely going to have a Lua serializer, and we're probably going to add a JSON serializer as well. But Lua for sure, because that's the one thing that I really enjoy using Lua. And then we actually want to add one more folder here. So we'll go up here, add, and it's going to be for source. That's just going to be source folder. Awesome. And since this is a CMake project, we might as well add our CMake list file right now. So here, add new file. And this is just going to be CMake lists.txt. And we're just going to leave this empty for now because we don't have any files to do, but we'll get to that in a second. And in our dialogs right here, we're going to have a new, before we keep going here, I actually want to have another folder. And I want to put these in it. And we're going to go here, add another folder, and go Scion File System. And we're going to drag those two folders into it. Cool. So whenever we call this, we'll call Scion File System and then grab whatever we need. Cool. So in our dialogs, let's add a new file. And this we're going to call file dialog. Add new file. And it's going to be file dialog.h. Cool. So the file dialog.h is just going to be a C++ style wrapper around Tinyfiledialogs. Because Tinyfiledialogs is C style. So we're going to make it a C++ style. Now you may have a better way to do this. This is the way that I enjoyed. So it works for me. So first thing I'm going to want to do is include string here. Now we should be making PCH files. And we're also going to want a vector. Okay. Rather than always including these. I should go around doing that for all the libraries and make sure that it's common. And then we can get all the precompiled headers whenever we need. But this is fine for now, but it's good practice to use precompiled. So we have namespace. And this is going to be Scion File System. Scion File System. Cool. And class file dialog. And control KD. Awesome. So we're just going to have some public stuff. We're probably not going to need anything private right now. So we'll just have public. What I care about right now is opening file dialog, the save file dialog, and the select folder dialog. Now the one thing about the select folder dialog with Tinyfiledialogs, if you're on Windows, it just opens up the OS dialog. It doesn't keep the black background or whatever background you have set. The open file and the save file work fine. However, the folder one does not. So if you don't want to do that, I recommend using NFD, which is also very good. But we're going to use Tinyfiledialogs because I like its API. All of these are going to return a string. And the string is going to be a path to the file or the folder that we want. So we'll say std string, and it's going to be open file dialog, and it's going to take a const std string. That's going to default. And then const std string. This should also be a reference. This is going to be const reference, and it's going to be the default path. Sorry, this has to be s title, and this is going to be the default path. So s default path. Okay. Then we're also going to want to have the filter data. So how we want to filter it depends on you, but we're going to do it with a const std vector const char pointer for filters. Okay. And we'll go over that choice when we get to it. And we're also going to have the filter description, and that's going to be const std string reference s filter description. Cool. So that's our one. Let's copy this because they're basically the same thing for the save. And the filters, this should actually default as well. And these should all default. Except for the title. Actually, the title can default to just open. Cool. Default path can just default to nothing. Filters and description. Cool. So let's actually copy this again after changing those defaults. Change this to save file dialog. Save file dialog. S title will be saved by default. And everything else can stay the same. And the last one is going to be the select folder. Now for me, I only care about the title for this one. So select folder dialog. Now there are other options we could add, but I really only care about that. So select folder. Cool. Okay. Now these are going to be wrappers for the Tinyfiledialogs. So what we want to do now is go and create another file, new file, file dialog.cpp. Cool. It's going to include file dialog.h, and we're going to have our namespace Scion file system. Awesome. And let's create these three functions. So now that we have this, we might as well include in the Scion file system dialogs file dialog. So the problem is, and you guys may have caught that, is I put this right in our include folder. I don't want to do that. I actually want to drag this to my source folder. Cool. All right. Yeah, because our include folder is just going to have our H files, and then we'll have our source folder separated. Okay. So in our dialogs, so let's go back here. Now we want to include Tinyfiledialogs. So include Tinyfiledialogs. Dialogs.h. Cool. So let's actually do our CMake file. We might as well do it now. This is our empty CMake file. And we basically want to do the same thing as the other library files that we created. We just want to adjust it for the file system. So we can go add library. And it's going to be Scion file system. Cool. And we're going to have our dialogs. And the first one is going to be include Scion file system dialogs file dialog.h. Cool. Now we're going to have our source file dialog.cpp. Cool. That's all we need for now. Now we have to do our include directories. We need to go target include directories. And for this, we want Scion file system public. That's going to be $, CMake current source directory include. So now we're going to want to link the necessary libraries that we're going to need. So that's going to be target link libraries. And that's going to be Scion file system and private. And then Scion logger and Tinyfiledialogs. Tinyfiledialogs. Cool. And then we want to set our target compile options. So target compile options. And that's going to be Scion file system private $$ compile language CXX $, CXX compile flags. Cool. So now that we have that, let's actually go back to our main and add it as a subdirectory. And we can add it just right here. Add subdirectory, Scion file system. Cool. And we might as well add it in here for the target properties. Scion file system. Cool. Now we'll put it in the engine folder for us. Awesome. Now what's this saying? Cool. Forgot to put that there. That should do it now. Errors? No errors. Cool stuff. And we also want to put our file system in the core, because the core is what's going to be linked to our editor. So let's go up to our core CMake here and add this in. And we can just add this right after rendering like we've been doing here. So let's put it down another line. We can say Scion file system and add that in. All right, so it looks like our CMake is happy. We don't have any errors. CMake generation finished. So I'm just going to run this really fast and see if it compiles and builds. And then we're going to come back and fill out this file dialog stuff. Awesome. So it looks like that built. No issues, no errors. Let's close it down. And let's now try to do the Tinyfiledialogs stuff. And I know that it returns a const char pointer, or it returns a char pointer. So I'll say const char pointer, and we'll just call this file. And that's going to be equal to Tinyfiledialog. Tiny, see everything's happy now. FD, open file dialog. And as you can see, it takes a title as a const char, so we can send in our s title C string. Then it has the default path and file, so we just leave that to blank most of the time. So we can just say s default path C string. Then it's the number of filter patterns. Now what that is, eventually we're going to have to add in the filter patterns, and we'll go over that shortly. We'll go filters dot size. That's why I chose a vector for this. And now, if you see here, now we're on the filter patterns, the A filter patterns, okay? And that's a const char pointer const pointer. So that's a pointer to a const pointer. So what I need to do, so basically that's saying like you have an array and you're putting the address of the array in, okay? So what we'll do here is we'll have a vector, right, of const char pointers, and it takes something like this dot. So say it was PNG files, so you PNG, that would be one entry, right? Then you add more PNG, then bitmap, BMP, JPEG, etc. Right? So that's what it would be, and that would be 3, and it would filter out for these 3 file types. That's what we're going to be doing. Okay. So we can just say or filters dot data. Cool. And then it's the filter description, and that's just s filter description dot cstring. And the last one is allow multiple selects, and we're just going to send in one. Cool. So here, if the pointer, because this is a pointer, if it returns nothing, so we'll just say if not file, we're just going to return basically an empty string. Now you could say std string here if you like, so we can do that. Std string, return a string, cool. Else, we're going to return std string of the file. Whoops. So if you see here, we're just returning the file. Now that's one of the constructors. It can take a const char pointer. Cool. So the save file is going to be basically the exact same thing. So we can just copy this here, paste this in, and just change this. Instead of open, it's going to be save. As you can see, it has the same signature, and we can just return the same stuff. And then here for the folder, might as well just paste this in as well. But it doesn't have the same signature. So let's get rid of all of this. So we need to go TinyFD, select folder dialog. Now this one has a different signature. So this one has a title and a default path. I don't really care about the default path for this one. Now we could send it in. Actually, you know what? We might as well. We might as well send it in because we're doing it up here. So let's just copy this default path. Whoops. Sometimes I hate the keyboards. Take this, paste, default path, copy that. Send it in .cstring. Cool. And we got to go fix this. And default path can just be empty. Awesome. KO. Cool. So instead of file, let's make it, it's going to be a folder here. So we'll just change. It's the same idea. It's just returning a string to the path, but the path is a path to a folder, right? But it's the same idea. Cool. Now you could put errors here if it's empty. However, I believe the user should be checking if the string is empty before it does anything with it. And that's basically it. So now what we're going to want to do is quickly go to the menu display and see what we can come up with here. Okay, so let's go to the menu display up here and let's include some things. So let's include Scion file system, dialogs, file dialog. And here, instead of new press, right, we can say, actually new will be different. Instead of open, let's change this and let's say Scion file system, file dialog, and we'll just call this FD. Then we're going to say auto file is equal to, or let's say, yeah, file is equal to FD open file dialog, and we'll just put in a title. This is going to be opened tests, and what we're going to have a default path. We're going to have no default path. I'm fine with that. Or I think we can go SDL get default. We'd have to include SDL to do that. So let's do that first. So here, include SDL.h. And from SDL.h, we can say SDL get base path. So SDL get base path. Now I think we can just send that in like that. So that's going to be our default path. Then we're going to have our filters. And our filters is just a vector of const char. So we can just say vector, and that can just be the squiggly brackets here. And it's just going to be, we're going to want to just filter for PNG. And let's just say, sorry, and filter for .jpg. Sure. So that's those two filters. What else is there? Can't just read any of what that says, but that's fine. So I only really care about those for now. So then I want to say if file.empty, and we want to say if not empty, want to go Scion, logger, file opened. Wow. Not Scion logger, Scion log. Sorry. Cool. And let's try it out. So we got an error. So it does not take 6 arguments. That's this here. Awesome. I guess they're not exactly the same. And run it. Cool. And file. And open. Ta-da! So we got our open tests. Is that what we called it? Let's look at the code real quick. Let's go to our menu display. And we called it open tests. Cool. And it's filtering PNG and JPEG files. So we can go to assets, textures, and we only have our PNG files, which is what we're filtering. So if we go over here and go to shaders, it'll show nothing. Even though we know there's shaders in there and we know that there's some scripts in here, it's not going to show any of these because they're not PNG or JPEG files. But if we go to all files, they're there now. Okay, so let's go back to our filter and go back to textures, and we'll just send in the trigger, and we should see that pop up here. Open, boom, file open, D development, Scion2D build, blah, 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 trigger.png. So once we have that file path, it's up to us to decide what to do with it. So that's where being able to open files and read data from a file. So say we have a project file, we're going to want to read that data in a certain way and place things into the engine, like new scenes, run in new tile maps or tile maps that were saved or serialized. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next few videos. So that's it for this video. This should work with on Linux as well. So Linux users, try it out. I'm going to make sure that I update the build instructions to make sure that it has this. And in the next few videos, we're going to be working on serializing our tile maps, because we can create tile maps now, but we can't do anything with them. So you have to make a new one each time, and then we never save it. So now we're actually going to want to start getting into saving it to a file. But we have the file dialog, so we can start. We're going to get into starting new, open, saving, and all that stuff, exiting. We're going to get into this. Let's close this really fast. So when it comes to stuff like this, like the IM GUI, and we're writing it all out this way, there's lots of ways that you can do this. I'm doing it this way because it's easy, but in reality, we should be using events and be making widgets like this, like wrappers. That is so basically this is just a button. So you could create a wrapper around this and all of these things, and just send in callback functions. Now we could do that. I'm not going to go into that right now. There's so much to do, and doing all the wrappers for the widgets would take a long time, and we won't really see anything for a while. That's not just a one video thing. So maybe after we're done, we'll go back and start fixing those things and making changes. But that's it for this video. If you have any questions or concerns, please leave a comment below. Also, please like and subscribe, okay? I'm really enjoying doing these videos, and I hope you guys are enjoying them. All right, take it easy.